personal relationships, whatever those relationships might be for you, in terms of how to recognize that this might be going on and what to do about it is really the conversation that we want to have. So, excuse me, Vicky, let's start with the question that I was talking to you about is that obviously in any relationship, we are bound to have certain conflicts. We are bound to have disagreements, getting on each other's nerves, whatever the way that we call it, right? So I think many of us consider this just part of relationship building. So then the question is when it becomes toxic, right? So what would you say to that?
Yeah, yeah, no, great question. Because as you say, having conflicts in a relationship doesn't mean immediately that the relationship is toxic. Actually,
Yeah.
I'm going to refer to studies of some experts in relationships, Gottman's, which is also the field of study I did, and they say that almost, I think it was something between 64 to 69% of conflicts are insolvable. So you will keep on bumping and having the same conflict
Mm,
all over and over. It doesn't mean you have a toxic relationship. It just means that
yeah.
some of the issues, basically, both of the partners have the same opinion, and they can. So you have to find your way around.
Yeah.
So that's dealing with, that's having conflicts in relationship. Of course, knowing how to deal with conflicts is important. But what is it, what is the boundary between I have a conflict and this is a toxic relationship? And they are, I would maybe look at it a different way, like what is a healthy relationship? And when
Mm,
we're looking at the science of healthy relationship, there are about 5 important elements, and that's trust, the importance of trust, accountability, that partners are accountable, safety, that both of the partners feel safe psychologically, physically, honesty, honest behaviors, and they support each other and collaborate and cooperate. So if there are massive parts of this relationship missing,
yeah.
if you're not feel, you cannot be who you are, you cannot act in a way you would like to act, and these elements are not present, I think that would be a sign of a toxic relationship if we look at it very generically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was also thinking about, like, for everyone thinking about their own relationships, right? Because we all best know our own relationships than anyone else. Is I identifying maybe for yourself, what would be where you say, okay, this is getting beyond what I consider a healthy relationship, right? So obviously everyone needs to have their own definition of what healthy relationship is. These are very subjective, or I guess the way that we think about is healthy is when we are willing to build it, we're willing to commit to it, right? We're willing to continue thriving in it instead of surviving in it, or instead of just hoping that this will somehow resolve and we don't know what to do. So therefore, when you think for yourself, what would be the indicator for you? You say, okay, this is getting beyond healthy relationship, and what are the things that I want to be doing, and what are the indicators? And the way that I have applied to my life is very similar to what Vicky is saying, where I always think about, okay, is this based on trust or it's based on fear?
Yeah.
And if it's based on fear, then what am I really fearing, right? So I think these are like questions that everyone can reflect on themselves. The other one is also for me is honesty. Am I really able to be honest? Or I'm trying to hide things, or I'm trying to like tiptoe a bit so that I don't offend the other because I'm trying to be honest, or whatever it is, right? So I think these are like your own indicators of, okay, is this happening or not? And the other one that's big for me as well is, do I really feel like I'm really me in the relationship, or I'm again trying to adjust myself a lot, which is used to be my like
Mhm.
chronic pattern of the past. So therefore it comes easy for me
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
adjust to things, or
Yeah.
just like saying, oh no, it doesn't matter, or it's okay the way it is. But then what I notice it when I do that is I have resentment, right? So resentment for me is an indicator that I'm not really
Yeah.
building that healthy relationship.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Those are super indicators that you have mentioned exactly, because being
Yeah.
able to be vulnerable and to be ourselves, our authentic selves in the relationships are
Yeah.
super, super important indicators. If you're able to operate in vulnerability and
Yeah.
have no fear, I think that's a very good sign. And as you're saying, they are sort of a four. They call it four horsemen of the
Mm,
apocalypse, but basic four toxins in four main toxins in relationship.
yeah.
And you mentioned sort of a resentment is or contempt is definitely
Yeah.
one of them. If you're
Mm,
feeling that this is accumulating, then there
yes.
is something to be addressed. It doesn't mean that the relationship is doomed,
Yeah.
but it really is the willingness of the both sides to admit it
Yes.
and work on it.
Exactly. And the other thing that I think
Mhm.
I was thinking about is the in terms of like identifying health is I'm more and more noticing how thriving relationship can be when we see people in their own power
Yeah.
instead of seeing them as needy or seeing them as not capable, right? I think this is, I would say this maybe like for me would be one of the main indicators for me to see myself in my own power and seeing others in their own power and not to be underestimating in any way or undermining in any way, right? Because as soon as we start undermining, I think we create this disbalance,
Yeah.
and that disbalance tend to like open up lots of space for like criticism, like Viki you were talking about, right? Or other acts that we actually do not want to have. So let's talk about those. Like you called it, I don't remember what you called it.
Four toxins, but there is
Yeah,
a
toxins.
very nice word like four horsemen of the apocalypse, but it's it's not important. It's four toxins.
Yes, but I remember one of my clients was telling me that allergens, right, or something that creates allergy, basically, and
Good way of describing it.
yeah. So
Yeah.
whatever the thing that you feel like for your own relationship, right? Whatever that
Mhm.
you feel like is the source that keeps being irritated, that
Yeah.
keeps creating this atmosphere of where you can't really talk to each other, where you feel like you need to yell at each other
Mhm.
for you to have attention or
Mhm.
have some kind of communication. I think when you notice what that source is, you can start doing something about it, right? So what would you say, Vicky,
Yeah.
to where
Yeah,
it starts?
yeah, Asan, I just would like to also go back a little bit to what you said, because there was one thing that is popping in my mind as you are speaking about,
Mm,
the power dynamics in a couple,
yeah.
and like what came to my mind is really if you are in a fight or flight mode in relationship, you will be fighting. You will not wish the best for the other. You will be seeing the other as an adversary, and
Mm,
that's also the part of the toxins, right? But if you
yes.
really wish the other, like I really wish you success, I really wish you to thrive, as you're mentioning, then that's the sign of a healthy relationship. So absolutely, you one of these very important toxins is criticism. And sometimes we criticize, sometimes we say something, but if the critique is really continuous and non-stop and very frequent, then this may lead to real destruction of a relationship. And this is really important to realize, because underneath every criticism there is a request. It's
Mhm.
just very often we sort of
Yeah.
stay on the surface, but underneath is always a request. Like
Yeah.
what if I'm saying to someone, you're always late. You're always late. There is a request underneath, like maybe it's something along, can you please respect my time? I really wish you came um, on time, or something along those lines.
Yes, and I was thinking also that whenever we are doing criticism, is basically we are also communicating our own irritation or our own annoyance, whatever it is that we don't like, right? We are like projecting, showing to the other person, assuming that the other person will stop doing whatever they're doing, then I will feel okay, kind of
Yeah,
um, dynamics, right? And whenever that type of dynamics happens, is meaning that I can be happy if the other person changes, then it's likely to continue creating that atmosphere or that relationship that you don't want, right? So that's why noticing that the criticism or whatever you feel annoyed about or you feel frustrated about or disappointed about it is if that is communicated in that form of I want you to change so I can feel okay,
yeah,
that will never lead to
yeah,
anything
exactly.
to resolve it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly as you're mentioning. And that's why one of the solutions of this, or one of the suggested pathways to go about it, is really communicate how I feel. If I'm annoyed,
Yeah,
to communicate, I feel hurt, I feel not listened to, I feel
yeah,
forgotten, whatever. And what is, and not to say, oh, you are. So really start with I, how I feel, and what is my wish. I wish you could come earlier. I wish you could talk to me. I wish you could take time for me, whatever. Because if we communicate the criticism, that it creates defensiveness on the other side, and that
yeah.
doesn't create any room for dialogue, or very difficult to dialogue in these.
Yes, exactly. And also, I think the other thing in the context of criticism we may notice is that it's so easy to mirror the behavior of the other person if the other person is the one who is prone to criticize, right? Then at some point we may want to just jump on board and criticize the other person. And that's, I think, like many relationships like have worked that way, and unfortunately that doesn't lead to anything, right? So therefore also restraining yourself from mirroring the other person's behavior, especially that's not a good feeling, right? When someone criticizes you in the way that's not useful, it's not a good feeling that you receive or you feel, and therefore why then do the thing that you are not wanting the other person to do, but you just do it because you feel frustrated or you feel like that's the only solution, but we know that's not the only solution, or that's not a solution even at all.
Mhm,
So that's why I think understanding that whenever you are doing criticism, basically knowing that you are doing it because you are feeling certain things
mhm,
and you just wish the other person changed so you feel it differently. And we know that's not happening. And also, criticism can be expressed in the way that is useful to support the other person, but notice, are you doing it to support the other person or doing it just so that you can get rid of your own frustration, basically,
yeah, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
What would be the other ways that like toxic environment
Mhm.
can be created in the relationship?
Yeah. There are few, as we call them, the toxins. There is the second one, is contempt, and that's probably one of the worst ones, because it's
Mm.
almost, you have already been tolerating something for a very long time without addressing it, without speaking about it, without trying to find a
Mm.
solution, or and it's just accumulated, and by now you have a contempt for the other person. Actually, that's probably one of the worst toxins, where it's very difficult to, it's possible, if both sides are interested, but if you already have contempt, like you don't almost have respect for the other person, and that's
Mm.
obviously very difficult to address, but possible.
Yeah. So I think, like, if it was my relationship and I'm feeling this, right? I'm like, I think we talked about resentment
Mhm,
and where it really feels like there is no way,
mhm,
even if we talk to each other, this wouldn't solve
mhm,
anything, right? I think this is the feeling that we get to. And in those moments, I think it's so easy to just avoid, not do anything, or maybe even consider radical options of separation or divorce or whatever it is that we may consider. But in those moments, what I like to do, at least for myself, is to say, okay, what is the goal here?
Yeah.
Right? The goal is what? Like to stay, to renew my love, or whatever it is the goal is, or maybe to leave as well, right? So whichever it is, what the goal that I'm trying to do or get at. And I also would like to not make my separation or divorce goal, like if that's a goal, let's say, I wouldn't want to take it from resentment place. I wouldn't want to make decisions from those places, because I know in those moments I just will, like, my brain wants to suggest get away from this person as soon
Yeah.
as possible. That's the solution, right? That's all, like many of us know that feeling. But I know that if I make that decision from that place, it's likely I will not resolve a lot of the topics
Hmm.
of why I'm feeling in this way, right? Why I kept accumulating all of this
Yeah.
and not really communicate it. And why do I feel like we can't really talk through and then
Hmm.
resolve it? And maybe there are also reasons as to the other person does not want it, which may also be the case, right? And if the other person does not want to have this conversation or feels like there's no point, then maybe the goal of the conversation could be to say, what are we wanting
Yeah.
in the end of the day?
Yeah.
Because continuing surviving or like just
Hmm.
keep going as it is, we know at some point it will explode,
Yeah.
whichever way, or we implode or explode individually, or we do it together, right? And that's causing conflict, obviously. So therefore, in order not to continue that status quo, what if we have the conversation around, okay, what is the ultimate goal, and do we really continue doing something about it, or there's no way?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, I think, maybe open up the conversation. And if not, I would still try to clean up my resentment
Mhm.
and contempt
Yeah.
feelings. And the way that I would do it is I would say, okay, even if I keep accumulating and keep having these feelings, they are hurting me in the end of the day.
Mhm.
And I don't want to be hurting myself all the time. And therefore, one way is forgiving the other person,
Mhm.
for myself. The other way is getting all of this piece by piece out of my system.
Yeah, yeah. Those are very, very important recommendations. Working on oneself.
Yeah.
Well, if there are, and that's I think also the situation where many couples already having accumulated quite a lot of the
Mm.
resentment, they decide to go apart. But as I mentioned, there is a way. If both couples, maybe they've been for a while together, if both people decide that they maybe want to give it a try, one of the ways to really work on this is build a culture of appreciation. So to go back and remember, how was it at the beginning? What is it that brought
Mm.
us together? What are the values that are bringing us? What is it that we wanted to build? And maybe things have derailed that we didn't even notice how things have derailed. So definitely, I think I would always suggest, if the contempt is not so huge that you cannot even see through it, to go back and start with this. And
Yeah.
at least, as you say, you have done the work, you have cleaned the resentment, and then when you are feeling okay, we have done the work, then you can
Yeah.
say yes. It's
Yes.
still we are going separate ways or we are going back, but I think, as you're
Yeah.
saying, if no work is done, like no coaching or no work is done on this, then people continue living with this resentment, they go separate ways, continue living with this resentment, and start new relationship based on this feeling.
Yeah.
That's really another good place, I would say.
Exactly. And I was also thinking that sometimes maybe suggesting even like um, to the other person that, okay, let's get all the things out together, meaning not in the way that I want to kill you, or I don't know, I want to whatever, right? That's not the goal, but the goal is whatever the feelings or whatever the frustrations, resentments that we're having, like getting all of them out in each other's presence
Yeah.
could also be another way to look at it. Of course, many couples I think now are understanding that they want to seek marriage therapy or um, coaching, whichever the way that they feel good about, right? And that would be also another form of structured way of getting
Mhm.
things out, basically.
Yeah.
And if you are someone who's not in that place, or let's say maybe the partner does not want to do that, or you don't want it, whatever it is, then one of the ways you can consider is also like getting all the things out. And I
Mhm.
think one of the reasons why I tend to go for conflict as a way of solution in that regard is to just get everything out, because I think conflict also allows us to say, okay, I have nothing to lose, I will say all the things, right? And then at least we see what's happening for ourselves, even if the other person does not hear it or does not want to hear it. At least we have gotten everything out.
Yeah.
And then we have this feeling of, oh, okay, I
Mhm.
have everything out. Now what am I going to do? Right?
Yeah.
Because that's the key part in then deciding what to do next, instead of just leaving it there and then saying, oh, the other person didn't hear anything, so then
Mhm.
it was like moot point. No, it was important for you.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's definitely one of the ways. Again, I always suggest just to talk about myself, how I'm feeling,
Yeah, exactly.
and not talk about the other person. And sometimes, if the aggression in the relationship is high, there could be methods used that people can write, or they could different ways. So that as it's as we know that the emotions can rise very quickly, and when we are in this state of remote emotional arousal, this really high emotional tension, then it's not easy to discuss. Actually, it's
Yeah.
actually advised not to discuss. It's advised to take a break. uh,
Yeah. And
from
also, I think it's important that we set boundaries as well, even in those moments, right? So,
Yeah.
for instance, my boundary would be that I don't want to talk to my partner or whoever who is so aggressive or so in the way that I don't feel safe even to be talking
Yeah.
about things, right? So therefore, I would say, I don't feel like talking when you are in this tone or in this mode or state, whatever it is, and therefore, let's discuss it when we can both um, are ready or able to do that. That's definitely, and I think the other thing is that I would never even allow to someone to talk to me in the abusive way. I
Yeah.
think this is also key, that we all understand
Yeah.
our own limits or our own way of understanding, okay, this is an abusive behavior, I do not tolerate it, and therefore it's a no. Whatever it is, it's a no, right? So that's, I think, key to remember. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, any other that we didn't talk?
Well, we didn't talk about two others, but maybe maybe we will. I will mention one of them, and it's stonewalling. And in particular, sometimes there could be a heated moment, or one of the partners. There is such a flooding of emotions that the person sort of stays silent
Mm,
and blank and cannot
yeah,
even respond. It's too much for me to deal with this.
yeah,
So in this, and I alluded to that a little bit, it can happen, and it's those are the dangerous moments that if one of the partners starts screaming or shouting or criticizing, that those are the moments that a lot can be said and a lot of harm can be done in these emotional outpourings. So this is actually, as I mentioned before, in these situations, it's advised to really to take a moment to calm down, both of them. But actually, what happens very often that we go and calm down, but we are in our heads thinking about
Yeah.
arguments, thinking about how we want to fight and how we want to finish this. But actually, that's not supposed to happen. It's really advised that calm down, don't think about it, do something you like to do it for hour, two, five, and come back without having analyzed, over analyzed, and created scenarios.
Yes.
So yeah.
And I think one thing that I like helps me all the time, that is my strategy, is I always like in those moments I think my at least my brain tends to say, okay, we need to hurt the other person, right? Right? Or we need to like get back at them in some way. And whenever my brain suggests that, I want to remind myself that that's not how I want to build the relationship. Because I think in the end of the day, like we said, the what is the goal, right? If the goal is to build the relationship or we want to be with that person despite all of this that's happening, then I want to remind myself that my goal is never to get back at them or hurt them or being, I guess the simpler word is being nasty at the
Mhm.
other person. I don't want to be that person, right? So if I don't want to be that person, then what do I want to do next? And definitely calming down, calming my nervous system and all the things, and then like breathing deeply and then saying, okay, what do I actually want to be in, or who do I want to be in this relationship? Do I want to be the person who tries to solve it and then therefore find out how we can pass through this, or just stay in this loop of, okay, you didn't do this and I didn't do this, and then being like this, um, I'm thinking of this like the fairy tales where two-person not passing the bridge in the forest, right? And I think that's really not the useful place to be. It will cost me so much energy. It will cost me so much nerves, which I don't want to do, right? So therefore, I need to remind myself that no, the purpose is that I want to pass through this, that I want to learn how to solve these type of difficult situations, and how would I do it in the way that in the future hopefully we will have less of it, because if we don't solve certain things it will keep coming back, obviously, right? And like Vicky was saying, maybe there are certain conflicts that can't be solved, but there are definitely certain ones that if we're willing that we can try. So that would be how I would strategize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we have talked a lot about already, and we don't want to also overwhelm people about so many things. But I think what my summary of what I would always think about is, okay, how do I, no matter what the situation is, how do I want to handle it, right? What is my way of handling it? Um, that is maybe different from the other person, but at least I stay true to who I am and how I do things, even though in the moment I would love to maybe do other things that destroys even more or gets people hurt even more, right? And I think we're all humans. We have this urge maybe at times, but then reminding myself that no, I want to really understand for myself, how do I build relationships, what is a healthy relationship for me, and where it's no go area, and I just tell the other person, and then how do I want to solve it for myself and for this relationship.
Yeah.
What would you say, Vicky? Your
Absolutely. I
final
think
words.
it's those are though that's a very good way of looking at things. And I think probably many people have been in toxic relationships without realizing. So I think
Yeah,
sometimes the toxicity somehow increases day by day, bit by bit,
yeah,
and so it's difficult to see. So it's really important to check: am I authentically able to express myself? Am I happy? Do I have a trustful relationship? I mean, built on trust, collaboration, cooperation, love, etc. And if those elements are there and you're feeling good, then things are great. But if there is something you're feeling, then it's important to analyze, to understand what is it. Um,
Yes, absolutely. I think I always think of it like, okay, where it's getting disbalanced, right? In the sense of like where more of certain things are happening that I don't like, and then what is causing it, and then going in and discussing it ideally, right? That's, I think, where like the indicators you will see for yourself as well. And I think we feel most of the time, right? We feel when something is not right. That's, I think, a very human thing. And we may not maybe articulate sometimes why we feel that way, but we feel it. So I think following those feelings and then understanding why am I feeling this and what is it really causing it, right? So that could be always an indicator. Okay, so if you have any questions as usual, or if you want coaching on this, let us know. We'd be happy to accompany you in this journey. And we will see you next Thursday with a new topic.
okay.
Thank you, Vicky.
Thank you,
Thank
Asel.
you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. See you next Thursday.